Hey guys, this is QXC. Today I'm going to be talking about the art of defense in TVT, and more specifically, how to hold on when you're at a disadvantage, how to win a lost game, how to make a comeback. So let's go ahead and start this game. This is a TVT that I played versus Zav in the ESL tournament shortly before the beta went down. And you're going to see me make a couple of pretty big mistakes early on. Lose my army, lose my units, and don't get much compensation. And then you're going to see me on the defensive for quite a while until, the point at which he GGs is not when the game is truly over, but it's certainly when I had a significant advantage. I had turned the game around. And so we're going to see the kind of principles, what I do that makes that possible. So one thing specifically in TVT where I think siege tanks are probably the strongest is having a siege tank line is just about the best defense anyone could ask for in TVT. So if you find yourself in a position where you're like, oh man, just like I can't push out, I can't expand, I can't do anything, massing siege tanks is a pretty good first step. So nothing too interesting going on here except the green Terran, which is Zav, opted for 10 racks. So that's a barracks on 10 supply, which gives him earlier barracks units, either Marines or Reapers, depending on if he's gotten his early gas or not. So I scouted him pretty early, and I saw the barracks finishing, and you saw my SCV kind of dancing to the right of the barracks. I hadn't had enough time to see if he had taken his gas or not, so I wasn't sure if that was a Reaper build or a Marine build. So I danced my SCV there a little bit to prevent him from putting on the tech lab in case it's a Reaper build. Once I see he starts producing a Marine, I don't worry about it. I go check out the rest of his base and I see he's doing a pretty standard opening. So you can see here he steals my gas, and he actually ends up taking both of his gases. So part of the build that he's relying on is using that early barracks to get out early Marines, and then using that pressure to hopefully force me to spend more money on defense than I really want to. And then he steals my gas, and you notice I'm not killing the gas right away. I'm not entirely sure what the build is that he's doing, and I don't want to take all my Marines off that bunker in the front, go kill his gas, and then find out that he's pushing into my base with units. Because I know he's going to have a numerical superiority as long as he pumps out Marines. Usually the 10 racks gives you about one more Marine than the 12 racks at any given time. So you see I've taken my second gas back. He's building a bunker. Nothing too crazy right now, it's pretty even. Getting out a first Hellion so I can apply pressure. Usually the 10 racks build does some kind of Hellion pressure opening. You can see I actually get supply stuck for quite a while there. Part of that is a product of I'm a little off balance. I'm not sure what he's doing. His build's a little weird. The early barracks combined with the gas steal. But it's not a huge deal. You see my armory is about 15 seconds late. Another product of that kind of like, what's going on? I'm thinking too much instead of making reactionary decisions like I usually do. So you can see he's actually building a barracks right on the close base to me. And what that's doing is he's going to send that barracks into my main so he can scout me out and see what I'm doing without having to use a scan. Pretty smart idea. The scan costs, or a mule brings in about 270 minerals over the course of its lifetime. And a scan costs the same amount of energy as a mule, so a scan effectively costs you 270 minerals. A barracks is only 150 minerals. Not only that, but a barracks is persistent vision. So it can fly all over my base. He'll see everything I've got in my main with that barracks, and he's saving money compared to if he uses scan, so that's pretty cool. Even though I got a little supply stuck and my armory was a little late, which makes my Thor a little late, I'm really not behind at this point. Nothing has really happened. If anything, I'm probably a little ahead because he's opted for this early engineering bay. But he's going into stronger unit composition. Tank Viking is pretty good against Thor Marine, so I'm at a slight disadvantage there. So you can see my Marine Thor pushing out at this point. And a lot of the times this timing attack catches people off guard a little bit, but partly because I ended up getting supply stuck and delaying my armory, this attack comes a little later than it should have. So you can see the siege tank there just destroys all my Marines, and then these infantry units are able to take apart my Thor. So at this point, I'm pretty behind. Anybody watching the game right here would probably say QXC is losing and about to lose once Zav decides to actually push out. I should have never pushed into the tank line. And so you can see I'm switching into siege tanks right away. Thors aren't going to be very useful once the tank count gets up. Mass tanks tend to just kind of demolish anything on the ground. Especially Thors with Marine support. The Thors are big and slow and take forever to get close to the tanks, especially when there's Marine Marauder in between you and the tanks. So Zav notices, he realizes, you can see my vision and his vision. He knows that he's pretty far ahead, and so he's pushing out. And I know that I can't afford to fight a battle at this point. If I lose a battle right outside my main base like that, it's going to be all over. So I'm going to be just holding up in my main for a little bit. Like I mentioned earlier, tanks, super good at defending. So I'm going to be getting my tanks up. And I just keep backing up. I never want to actually engage. I just give up ground up to the point that I can, but I can't afford to lose my army. And so you saw I canceled my command center immediately. I rebuilt it somewhere else in my main. I need to expand. If I sit on one base and let this control the pace of the game, I'm going to lose for sure. It's kind of an attrition-based thing. But as long as I keep trying to expand, I keep trying to move out, I have a good chance. The one thing that you'll notice here, this is a huge blunder on his part, is tanks below the mineral line on this map can actually hit the SCV's mining. And his siege mode ended up being finished before mine was, and he was at my base. If instead of sieging those tanks right below my ramp, he had decided to siege them at my mineral line, there wouldn't have been very much I could have done. I have air superiority with my earlier Vikings and reactor, but it'd be pretty hard to defend that nonetheless. And so you can see here, I never want to give up anything I don't have to. But at the same time, I don't want to be sitting in my base doing nothing. That's probably the worst thing I could do, other than suiciding my whole army and losing the game. If I sit and let him get comfortable, he's going to be able to expand and increase his resource advantage. Right now, I'm applying pressure, I'm attacking him with his Vikings, but I'm not overextending. And that's the really critical difference when you're on the defensive like this, is the amount of pressure you can apply before you overextend is much smaller than if you're on equal footing. Right here, if I do one little misstep and I lose one or two tanks because I got baited into him scanning me, or I accidentally moved my tanks in range of his tanks, like, the game is over. And so I have to be super careful here. Everything is very, very precise, very finesse oriented. You see I'm just moving my tanks up just a little bit. I just keep applying pressure, keep abusing his defenses. and I want to make sure that he doesn't feel comfortable with this contain. He doesn't feel like, okay, now I can leave it alone and I can expand. And you can see, as I mentioned earlier, the game's not really over at this point. So we're going to rewind a little bit and take a look at the game state. You can see on the map he hasn't expanded yet. His army doesn't have any tanks in it. And I have 4 tanks and a Thor plus a number of Vikings. His expansion has just started. Mine has been done for quite a while. But basically all I did was I kept sitting in my base and using my tanks to poke at his defenses. He never got to a point where he was thinking, okay, I've got my contain, he's not being aggressive, I can expand, I can start adding production buildings. He always felt like he was on his, even though he was attacking me, he was right outside my main, but at the same time I was pushing him back with everything I had, without giving up anything serious. There was one point where a tank died due to a bad rally point, but other than that, I just used my Vikings to make it so I literally never took damage, or if I did, I repaired it so that it never turned into a unit lost. And the contain never got thick enough. What could have happened, let's say he had set up that contain and I had waited 2 minutes before I even tried to attack it. I had just set up my tank line and I was like, alright, I'm comfortable, I'm going to sit, he can't push any further, and then I tried to float to the base nearby and I started massing units. I got ready for this big attack out. Well, at that point, if I'm not attacking him, he can start, okay, he'll take his natural, he'll throw down 2 more starports or 1 more starport, add reactors, a second factory, and just start massing tanks and Vikings off his increased income. And as long as he's diligent with his scouting, he doesn't get hit by any drops, he's in a really good spot, and I don't want him to be there. I don't want him to feel comfortable and be able to take that natural. And so when you find yourself on the defensive, you want to be thinking about, what can I do? Not what do I want to do, but what can I do? I mean, right there, if I could have, I would have liked to have taken my whole army, unsieged it, attack moved, and ran him over. But that was impossible. The game state didn't allow that. I would have lost if I had done something like that. But the game state did allow, when I say the game state, I just mean like the current situation that the game is in, where I'm on the defensive, I've got less tanks, my economy is about equal but not great, but I've got a few more Vikings. And so what can I do? I can harass them with the Vikings and the tank combination. If I had gone some kind of bio build, I would have had earlier medvacs, and so instead of attack moving out of my base, I could have been doing drops. And a lot of what being on the defensive and being disadvantaged in a game means is your options are smaller. And so it's really critical to be able to look at the situation and go, what can I do? And do that. And you might not know what the next step is, but as long as you keep doing things that are available and don't lead to you losing immediately, you've got hope. And as long as you've got hope, you've got a chance of winning. And whenever there's a chance, there's a will, there's a way, you can find a way to win games that seem lost and seem hopeless. Thanks for checking in. This is QXC.